Pfizer used Drupal at the core of our digital platform strategy. We started this in around 2012, and we looked at other projects in the open source community, and we looked at vendors who are doing work in this space. And we really didn't find anybody who were really lining up to our vision of where we wanted to ultimately go. At that time, we had around 60 different content management systems that we were launching sites on. It's clear why that doesn't make sense. It's clear why you should narrow that down. And we chose Drupal with the ambition of narrowing down to one. And as of 2012, it became the only go-forward platform. We started finding other people that had very similar use cases to us and needed the same foundational technology. And then when we started partnering with those other stakeholders, it just started to make complete sense that we were all looking for the same core capability. And it absolutely did not make sense for us to build this on our own. Since then, we've launched several thousand different sites on Drupal, and it still averages out as more than one site being launched every business day since we initially made that decision. We got to the point now where we're starting to see businesses really using these capabilities, using them in ways that we were dreaming about a few years ago, as if it was a common capability. And still a few years later, we don't have vendors offering this capability. And we also found, many challenges along the way that we would have found if we were doing these things ourselves through custom development internally. But I'm not sure we would have had the ability to overcome those challenges without the support from the core team, other members of the community. It gives you the advantage of not having to have all the expertise to build these complex things yourself. But at the same time, you kind of control your own destiny. We've also been very deliberate to make sure that while we did that, we still had agility in our business team, so that it didn't get to just some centrally managed team where they were always waiting for the global team in order to move forward. So that was critical at the time, and we've been successful with that, which shows in the demand for this platform and the number of sites that have been launched. But fast forwarding to now, being in this situation where we do have all these sites on a single platform, we're now in a place where digital marketing is core to multiple business initiatives, and the capability evolution that's expected is pretty dramatic. It's core to many applications where we're serving content to those applications. It's core to self-service publishing and reuse and all these different initiatives that we're progressing at the same time. And as well as progressing with those business-focused initiatives, we also need to make sure that we're responsible as a company to make sure we're compliant with things like GDPR in Europe, and also making sure that we're protected from a cybersecurity perspective. And both of those are very challenging to do. I can't imagine how we'd achieve those things on their own without a single platform, never mind achieve those things and in parallel progressing the capabilities for our business teams as they're expecting and as they would be expecting in 2018. Drupal for us delivers that entire spectrum. Every website initiative that we launch is launched on Drupal. So as our team members and our vendor partners are building those sites, there's an expectation that as they improve modules, they're contributing back. We have data to show that delivers higher quality sites, and we encourage our vendors to be doing that every day as they perform their daily work of building these sites. It's really important for us that these vendors get it, that they understand how to work in the Drupal community, and they understand how to contribute back as well. In addition, I actually sometimes learn about what we're contributing just by looking at our page on Drupal.org, right? Because we encourage our vendors to use the credit system. We did this very deliberately when the credit system first came out, and we encouraged our vendors to use the credit system because it helped us understand the dynamics of the vendors that we work with and the way that they worked. And we combined this data together with some internal scorecard data to understand that people who were using the credit system or were contributing back built higher quality sites. They didn't fork modules, they were easily to maintain, they were higher quality sites that we could reuse. Absolutely, when it comes to maintaining our sites, it's more cost effective to do that. It's around showing the teams the behaviors that we value through that system. When I talk to some vendors, I typically work with vendors who already get it, right? Who already get it and know that they should be contributing back. But when I talk to some vendors who don't get it, the first thing they say is things like, do you realize, Mike, that if we give everybody every Friday afternoon to contribute to Drupal, our revenues are going to go down by 10%? I'm like, oh man, you do not understand how this works, right? Because that's not what clients are looking to buy. They're looking to partner with somebody to solve a problem in the most efficient way. And often the most efficient way involves some level of contribution. I know that from the sites that we've built. So when I talk to vendors and they say things like, no, we don't want to give somebody a Friday afternoon, I also think maybe that's not the right way, but you're thinking about this absolutely the wrong way. And it's going to not benefit us and not benefit the vendors as a result of it. So we measure everything in our projects. That there are things that we were measuring that we found over time didn't make too much sense, but we found when working with multiple vendors, we had standard guidelines that we implement and working with those vendors that started off just being documented guidelines, but we found automated checks for all of those. And on every commit, we check which of those standards have been met. And when the standards haven't been met, we go and have a conversation with the vendor. But we found a correlation between vendors who contribute back and then adherence to these standards. And the standards are a sign of a high quality site. Sometimes it can be simple things like page load speed and these kinds of things. Sometimes it can be very simple things that vendors do to get a functioning site that really isn't aligned to our standards, like disabling caching or forking modules or these kinds of things. Security in this place absolutely ties into some of the behaviors we're talking about in terms of contribution. In contribution, I talk about not forking modules. One of the reasons for that is if you fork a module, it becomes very difficult to upgrade that module in case of a security patch or something like that being necessary. So this is why we track some of these things in build quality of sites, because when a security patch inevitably does come out, every Wednesday our team are monitoring to see what's going to come out. They can quickly inspect the entire platform, understand the impact across the platform, and then take mitigating actions. Under our Drupal platform, it's not just Drupal, it's one single global platform with a consistent base platform that we then patch or upgrade as security issues, or there are module issues or security issues in modules that we then need to patch. We can update that once across the platform, and then we have methods to go deploy those to our sites on an expedited basis. So giving back is certainly not about just uploading reams and reams of code, right? It's not just uploading code and assuming that somebody else is going to just use this. It's all about driving consensus with other parties in the community, collaborating with other parties in the community. And those are behaviors that we value internally to our organization as well. We have a large organization behind our digital platforms. So those behaviors are essential. And then collaborating with other companies externally to do this just makes sense. I would put our contribution into two different buckets. I put it into larger investments, which are typically aligned to large initiatives like the workflow initiative. So in terms of what we've contributed to Drupal, in Drupal 7, we did a lot of work around the deploy module and ways to stage content and then deploy that across environments. And that was done in Contrib. And as we started to look at how we do this in Drupal 8, it certainly wasn't a case of just migrating those modules to work with Drupal 8. We wanted to look more fundamentally at this capability and other business capabilities that could be enabled if we evolved this. So there was definitely an extensive thought process before we did things like the workflow initiative. I would say we got to the point of learning our business inside out. We really understood the capabilities that we needed over time. And these were long-term capabilities, and we wanted a long-term roadmap to achieve them. And previously, we had made some small progress in these, in either contrib modules or in custom development. But when we took a step back to see what did we need to do to really support this for the long term, it was much more comprehensive than that, what would be necessary in terms of foundational capabilities necessary. That led to the Drupal 8 Workflow Initiative, where we've contributed with half a dozen people whose primary role is contributing to those kinds of initiatives. So that's one area, the larger initiatives. I would say we also contribute every day when it comes to just the function of building those websites. So being part of the broader community, it's certainly, and Drupal itself, it makes you feel proud. And certainly when people are doing work that makes it into core, there's without a doubt a sense of pride that they have done work that's made it into this project that's used by so many websites. And it also means when you come across a Drupal website or you notice it's a Drupal website in some way, there's certainly pride that's there. So Drupal really becomes part of your life for many people on the team, and they're very proud of working with it. And it's a great feeling. I would start with the clear vision of where you want to go, right? Clear vision aligned with the business. and working with the business, you have a mandate to get there. That mandate helps you remove roadblocks in achieving it. If you don't have the why you are doing this, large organizations are very good at eliminating risk. So any risk, perceived or otherwise, needs to be balanced with the reward of success. So you need a clear vision, a mandate to achieve that, so that you can balance that and put any risks or perceived risks in context of where you want to be heading. So I think that's the starting point. And then after that, it's an awful lot of education. It's an awful lot of education about understanding how this process really works, the kinds of things and guidelines about what would be open sourced and what wouldn't be. And some things don't make sense to be open source, both from the point of view that they're IP, but also from the point of view that it would just be uploading code that maybe doesn't make sense to other parties anyway. If you're doing that, there's not necessarily any value. So I'd say it's a lot about education. And several years ago, that was a challenge. And I would say if I didn't have the mandate to go and achieve the vision that we were achieving, I would have had too many roadblocks to be successful. I'd also say over time, I do see this changing. While there always needs to be a balance of risk versus return, and there will always be that balance for obvious reasons, I think people are starting to accept and realize that what used to be kind of called playing it safe is now the most dangerous strategy that you can have. It really is extremely risky. So I'm starting to see some attitudes changing around that. But in terms of getting through the roadblocks to do this internally in Pfizer, it was all around a vision and a mandate, and then education on the true risks that we were having and how we'd mitigate those.